More Canadians are becoming the victims of fraud during this pandemic, according to new surveys. And it has been a nightmare for one Toronto man after a thief forged a check and withdrew $30,000 from his bank account. Despite notifying his bank within 2 days, getting the money back has been a long and stressful process, highlighting the rights of bank customers in this country as well as their responsibilities. His entire life savings cleaned out in a day. We're protecting the identity of the RBC customer who became the victim of a $30,000 fraud. He noticed the money was missing from his account just 2 days after it was withdrawn.
Transaction, I could see an image of the check, and as soon as I saw that, I recognized that that was certainly not my signature or writing.
And notably, he says the money was withdrawn on the same day the check was presented to the bank.
I certainly wasn't even aware that one could just walk into a bank with a check that, that sum and be able to just deposit it or withdraw it in cash. So that was the other thing that was quite shocking.
Despite notifying his bank within 2 days, the funds were not immediately returned, and for weeks he had to follow up with hours-long calls.
Things had become quite difficult for me. As you can imagine, $30,000 isn't a small sum for anyone. It's certainly not for me. And I was facing significant financial constraints and liquidity pressures. And so I was really feeling extremely stressed out.
The funds weren't recovered until almost 2 months later. In a statement, RBC says, "We realize that any time a client is impacted by fraud or scams, it can be a difficult and stressful situation for them. In all instances, we work with the client throughout the process and keep them informed, as we did in this case."
Truth is that the financial system is lopsided in favor of large institutions.
The situation highlights an important responsibility for bank customers. Every Canadian should be checking statements regularly and should even set up alerts notifying them anytime there's a large transaction.
Everybody in Canada who's got a bank account has signed a verification agreement, and that verification agreement basically says that you promise to tell the bank immediately upon any wrongful debits from your account. And that keeps your right to the money alive.
Unless you notify your bank of fraud within 30 days, they can choose not to help recover the losses.
You want those banking services, you have to take on some risk of continually monitoring your account. You can't just go to sleep and think that your account is perfectly safe.
Lawyers say with only 6 major banks in the country, consumers pay the price.
If you had very aggressive competition, you'd probably have much more protective agreements.
RBC also tells us more about their security checks in place. They say to help detect and investigate fraud, they have a team of fraud experts working 24/7. They've also invested in emerging technologies. For City News, I'm Tina Yazdani.